Where were you in April of 2006? I'll tell you where I was. I was on some road in West Virginia in a car with a bunch of my friends. I was in college at the time, and we were listening to 10,000 Days, which at that point was the brand new Tool album. It's been 13 years since then, this coming April, and we still haven't gotten the follow-up to that disc. And, well, 2019 could be the year, maybe, who knows? We've had this tease before. It's happened over the course of the past couple of years. However, this time around we have some studio footage and some other information that seems to suggest that the album is either on the horizon or could be out as early as by the end of 2019, which is, I suppose, good news. Definitely seems to be good news within the community considering so many people are speaking about this album, which as of right now is untitled, with a lot of excitement. Almost as though this is an album that could absolutely do no wrong. But hold up, hold everything. Whoa, this album could disappoint you. It's a possibility. Trust me, I'm going to tell you why. Now, first of all, I don't want you to take this as, he hates Tool, he hates Tool. I'm actually a pretty big Tool fan. Have been for a while, have a couple t-shirts, all the records, I like this band. I wish that I had the opportunity to talk about them sooner. I've talked about a couple of Maynard's other projects. However, this is an album that has a 13-year wait time, which usually means that it's something that is worked to perfection. The boys are a little bit older now, which means that there could be a little bit of a difference whenever it comes to the music that we get. As you saw throughout Tool's discography, if you've listened to it all, Tool is not a band that necessarily likes to stay still. They instead like to evolve their sound a little bit, whether it's taking it from a harder to a more progressive edge throughout the 1990s, and then within the 2000s, exploring that side even more so, adding in some more artistic elements along the way. So this is a group that isn't necessarily going to sound like the exact same band that you got with 10,000 Days or Lateralis or really any album. That's one thing about Tool that makes them a very positive group. I don't see them being the type of band that's going to pull a radical stunt such as a Morbid Angel and have their sound just completely change, as Morbid Angel did with the Davidium Insanus. However, I do see this group as one that certainly grows up with the times. So why would this album potentially disappoint? Well, this could be one of the reasons. It could be that the way in which their evolution goes doesn't actually go to a more vast property, but instead kind of just stays stagnant or feels or sounds like it has a little bit to really prove as opposed to proving it within that music. As a great example, take a listen to Eat the Elephant by A Perfect Circle. By no means was this the perfect A Perfect Circle album. It's not the best A Perfect Circle album, at least in this reviewer's humble opinion. It was one that felt like it was just sort of there, almost as though their time had passed a little bit, but the music itself was still okay. It was an album that by and large wasn't, I would say, a disappointment, but instead of it being a masterpiece, it just kind of felt like it existed. And that's the reason why I didn't make any sort of list this year. It wasn't bad enough to be on the bad, it wasn't good enough to be on the good, it was just average, and that was a disappointment. I fear that might happen with Tool. Although Tool has never really released an album that has felt like a bona fide stinker, it is something where, well, let's not exactly tempt history. Let's not exactly tempt them to try and say, hold my beer, we can write mediocrity. Although I doubt Maynard would enjoy doing that at all, not to mention the other boys in the band. But also remember that they are a little bit older, and that it has been a long time since they've channeled this creative side of themselves. It's been 13 years since a studio album has dropped, and while we have seen in the heavy metal landscape time and time again that age seems to mean absolutely nothing, they're able to just sort of snap back into that side of their brain like a light switch and produce great material. It is something that whenever it comes to a group like Tool, and especially somebody like Maynard that has so many different musical avenues, that maybe we would be getting something that's a little bit different than what we've gotten in the past. But all of this so far sounds purely like, speculation. How about the one thing, the biggest thing, the glaring elephant in the room? Why this album could potentially be disappointing, numero uno. And that's because of the own hype that is swirled around it. Yes, for once the fan base is actually to blame potentially for an album flopping. Why? Well, because we've had a lot of time. That's exactly why. We've been taken down this road so many different times within the past 5 years that Tool's album's going to drop, that it's about time that it's dropping, that the album is done, that the album isn't done, that the album is, they don't like it, they want to make it perfect, they want to do this, they want to do that. The hype for this album has been swelled over 10 times over, not to mention there is absolutely no sort of anti-inflammatory that is silencing that swell. This is one that has gushed into an utter phenomenon whenever it comes to the alt-rock, heavy metal, rock and roll community. This is not going to be an album that saves rock, folks, and that's not, Tool wouldn't care. You know, they wouldn't care whatsoever. They just want to write an album for themselves. But it's also potentially not going to be an album that feels like it's saved anything either. It's not going to be an album that feels like that it's doing much of anything to the status quo. And again, Tool wouldn't care. But the fans might. You guys probably will. This is an album that may not be exactly what you expect it to be. And because of that, you may feel very let down. Do not fly too close to the sun, Icarus. That's exactly the situation that seems to be happening here. Icarus, in this case the fan base, seems to be hyping this up so much, seeing it as the salvation of the year 2019, a year that, given the names of bands that are going to be dropping albums this year, doesn't exactly need saving. It's looking pretty good. Looking as though this is going to be the disc that makes the year great. And there's a really big potential that that won't happen. Not saying that it will. Not saying that I've heard inside information or heard tracks that have confirmed that this is going to be very different or very bad or, the sky is falling. I'm not that mythological creature claiming that the sky is falling. I'm not the boy that cried wolf or the boy who cried Tool. Something like that. Instead, I'm just saying, call your expectations a little bit. Go in a little bit fresh. That's going to be the one thing that will actually help boost that idea that this is a terrific album within your own mind. Stop talking about it for a little bit. Let this album come to you. You know how they say that the best ones, the greats, always let the game come to them? Let this album come to you. The boys have been working very, very hard. They've encountered a lot of different situations. Of course, Maynard has gone off on side deviations with Pussifer and with A Perfect Circle, and has done probably a trillion other things behind closed doors, or maybe he was just, hanging out in his bathtub, beating himself, who knows. But this is still something where let the band sort of deliver to you that which it is that they have been working on. Have a reasonable expectation. Expect this to be a terrific album. Don't expect this to be Tool's best album. Don't expect this to be the album that's going to all of a sudden make music feel fun again if you currently think that music isn't fun. Don't give this album that much of a reputation. The reason why is because you're giving it way too much girth, and you're just setting yourself up for that disappointment. I'm not saying never be excited for anything ever again. I'm just saying be excited within reason. Be excited that it sounds like this album is really close to completion for like the 17th time. Be excited for the fact that 2019 may finally be the year that we get to follow up to 10,000 days. And be excited that if it doesn't happen, then that means hopefully it will happen before it actually becomes 10,000 days. It's been 13 years. Technically speaking, by title of that album, we still have 17 years to wait. So if it doesn't come out this year, maybe we should just strap in, because, 2036 is looking like a pretty decent year. Although I really don't know. By that point, I won't have any memory of this year, because I'll be in my 50s. One way or the other, just look into this reasonably. Don't overhype or overdraw this album to the point where it becomes something that when you get the material itself, it doesn't exactly have the same standing. If the A Perfect Circle album that we got in 2018 is any example, there is great potential that this is an album that could just really do well within the discography, but that's about it. And really at this point, that's all we really need from the guys. We don't need that added pressure of them delivering us an absolute masterpiece. We just want a new Tool album. And that's what we should hope for. So call your expectations. Temper, simmer down. Things will be fine. This way, at least, if you don't have these heightened expectations that praise it as Jesus incarnate, whenever it's, maybe not even an apostle, you won't feel like you just got screwed. Let me know what you think about this. I'm CoverKillerNation. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.